One thing you notice when you look at bluegrass players is you can all do that. There are movements that you make that you don't find rock players making.
And we never got there the same way.
No, but you were forced at a young age to play tunes that required it. And then your natural, like, obsessive trial and error abilities took over. And then you somehow, by hook or crook, you ended up with this, what you were calling the guillotine movement yesterday, which is this the semicircular one.
And it's not. I was using that term yesterday, and then I realized that guillotine drops.
It's true.
And I was like, why was I calling it that? And it goes back to the cover of Edgar Allan Poe.
What is that thing called?
You remember the book?
Yeah.
And the swing was a blade, and as it got lower, each swing would get lower. That's what I was referring to. And I thought, crap, I have been live, and now it's married to the internet, and I'm using the wrong killing device as the term. But for those that need to know, it's an Edgar Allan Poe cover, and there's a guy laying on a concrete slab, and the thing is slinging.
What is that thing called?
That's what I was...
I don't know.
I don't
I feel of expertise.
But the funny thing is, I didn't even question it. You said it, I knew exactly what you meant.
Yeah, and I apologize to all the viewers that thought, what's he talking about? That thing goes up and down, you know. So
that's right. Right, so you're not actually, in fact, what's interesting is we expressed...
That was the typewriter, yeah.
Yeah, you're not doing that.
It hit me last night at some point. I was scrolling Instagram, and I just thought, I have been the source of misinformation. I've done it. But no, I know where my brain pulled it from was the cover of that book.
Gotcha.
So there is, and I wonder if at some point in the Dark Ages, if that was still considered a guillotine, even though it wasn't this.
I think we know the name of that thing, and we probably knew it back when we played more.
Pendulum style killing, yeah.
Yeah. But so speaking of the pendulum thingy, then I think this is the movement you use when you play the awkward mid-tempo things, like any of the 8th of January or something like that.
And I noticed that,
kind of thing.
I keep that thing, that's almost like an internal clock for me. Like how much more movement keeps my timing right. Instead of playing with really tight, if I do... It's like all of that extra movement helps me keep time a little bit better. Or if I'm playing it up to like a crazy speed, like I just tried at the intro of the show for no reason. Like those kind of speeds are more finite.
Well, okay, so remember yesterday we found that extra gear where the movement becomes a little bit, that's similar.
Very similar.
In lineage-wise. But this one, the not guillotine movement.
The other thing we kill people with.
The cross-picking movement, essentially, the other thing we kill people with, is I think essentially one way of understanding these two is that when you do the semicircular one, and then the fast one is the semicircular one minus the upward portion of it. So it's just this.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So it's just kind of darting out to the side and coming back, whereas if I take this away, now we do this.
Now it swings, yeah.
So I think that's the difference.
Okay.
And what this does is, because it's only dead ending here, we now have to get over that string somehow, and that's why
That's why the thumb sneaks in,
sometimes.
yeah.
So if you can do the semicircular one, just like percussively on a string, just like the one.
Right?
Yeah. Well, now it's interesting is I can't even tell from this vantage point that that's happening, and I think this is one of the reasons that these movements sort of hide under the radar. They fly under the radar. Because from this, what I call audience perspective, if I were sitting in the front row watching you play, I wouldn't even know that your hand was doing that. It's super relaxed. I don't see anything that looks typewriter-y, right? But if I step over here, and I keep doing that, and I'm going to walk over here. Yep, absolutely. And it's genius, too. Right, so, and then when you lock into double time, though, then that's when this happens, and it only goes off to the side and back again. So these are kind of the two modes. I think if somebody wants to try and cop what you do in the very general sense, like, in other words, to learn a lesson of sorts, the two modes would be the semicircular one, using that setup that we just sort of stepped through, where you have these contact points and the grip, and it's mostly all on the side of the arm, and then you have a movement which is mostly wrist movement, appears to be mostly wrist, and you have the pick starts up in the air, hits the string, and then comes out again at the end like this. And it just, if you look at it like this, you don't see, it just looks like the wrist going back and forth. But it's only when you see it this way.
That's why I said you should really examine Chris's technique, because he's very deceptive in that a lot of times he's wearing maybe a suit or something.
That's also tricky.
You can't see he's a big fan of looking
like
nice.
a dapper gentleman.
Yeah.
He when I interviewed David Greer, I asked him nicely, and he obliged to roll up his sleeve, actually.
For that very reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, what we're talking about.
Yeah, and he was kind enough to do it.
My gosh, you'd have to be down at this angle to see Chris's if he guillotines or not.
Absolutely.
I'd love to know that, just because, you know.
Oh, no, he definitely does.
Yeah.
Without question. In fact, there's a clip you can check out for those who are interested. He plays the Bach E major prelude on the internet.
Was that with Bela Fleck playing one? It was for a special that was on TV?
He's played all of these, like a few of his favorites, like a number of different things.
Gotcha,
this was in what looked like a living room, maybe his.
Okay.
He's just sitting there like on a piano bench.
Yeah.
And at one point they point down over the shoulder, and sure enough, what do you see? You see this.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, what you see appears so aggressive that you wonder how anyone could play quickly while making what appears to be a typewriter movement, but in fact is not, as you're proving. Is this kind of movement can in fact be done super fluidly without the constant, like, the mashing of the arcade buttons
that would
kind
just
of movement.
wear you out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Remember that old, there was an Olympics game, like back, it was an 80s
track
thing.
and field.
Track and field,
like that,
where you had to just mash those buttons as fast as you could.
Yeah.
And that...
You just burnt you up.
That'll use up your forearm real fast, especially as a guitar player, and that'll lead to
You're
all
talking
kinds
about
of...
doing a 90-minute set at some of these tempos, like you'd be toast.
Absolutely.
Toast, yeah.
So the fact that you were able to intuit this, I think it's one of the genius-like things. Is why we drag you down in here.